Hey everyone, in this video we are going to talk about the structure of a nucleotide. By the end of this lesson you should be able to identify the components of a nucleotide and describe important features at certain carbons within a nucleotide. Let's get started. To begin with, remember that the chemical makeup of nucleotides or nucleic acids are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus or CHOMP. There are three features of a nucleotide you need to know. One is a 5-carbon sugar, and this could be deoxyribose or ribose, and we'll talk about how to distinguish the two in just a moment. Number 2, there's going to be a nitrogenous base. So these are your adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, or uracil if it's for RNA. And then third is a phosphate group. Now this is something new that I'm adding. Phosphate group is negatively charged. It's important that you know the charge of this type of macromolecule. And thanks to this phosphate group, nucleic acids are negatively charged. All nucleic acids will be negatively charged. And so I just indicated it with a negative symbol right here. So these are the components of a nucleotide. Let's now talk about the structure of it because we need to understand important carbons along the way. So to draw a nucleotide, we're going to start with just a simple oxygen, which we indicate with the letter O. Now from this oxygen, we are going to have some carbons attached, and we're going to attach the carbons to this oxygen using a straight line for a bond. So you can see here, I've drawn 2 bonds off of this oxygen. Now for the carbon, all I'm going to do is just change the direction of the line and eventually draw what looks like a pentagon. And at each of these corners right here, 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 and here is a carbon. Now, we already talked about there's a 5-carbon sugar, and here we've only got 4, so let's add the 5th carbon. So the 5th carbon is going to come up from here, and I'm just going to write a C to represent that carbon. Now, to understand something later on, we are going to have to number our carbons because this is how we're going to distinguish important features of the nucleotide. And the way that we number carbons is we start at carbon number 1, and then from here, what we're going to do is move clockwise. This is the oxygen. And then from here, we're going to move clockwise. So this would be carbon number 1. Next would be carbon number 2, number 3, number 4, and then last, number 5. Now that we have the carbons labeled, I can illustrate or point out some important features of this 5-carbon sugar. Let's start with carbon number 1. At carbon number 1, you're going to find the nitrogenous base we mentioned in the structure of the nucleotide. So I'm going to very generically label it as nitrogenous base. You can see here there's a bond that attaches it here to carbon number 1. And understand that there are other molecules. So carbon can form 4 covalent bonds thanks to its 4 valence electrons. But I'm not going to draw every bond that you can see on this carbon. It kind of gets too sloppy. I'd rather focus on what you look for to help you distinguish between ribose versus deoxyribose. So there is another bond here, but I'm going to keep it nice and clean by drawing just what you need to know. So this is that nitrogenous base, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, or including uracil if this is RNA. The next important feature that I'm going to add is at carbon number 2. If you take a look at carbon number 2, and you can see that there's already 2 valence electrons or 2 bonds that have been drawn at this carbon number 2. If you see an OH group here at carbon number 2, and it would look like this, if you see that OH group, then what you're looking at is ribose. If that OH group is lacking, so it would look like this instead, then what you're looking at is deoxyribose. So I'm just going to make a note down here at the bottom to help you remember that. Next up, I'm going to point out at carbon number 3 for all nucleotides, so this is whether it's RNA or DNA, there is going to be an OH group that we need to acknowledge and just understand. At this point, we just need to understand that there's an OH group there because it is going to play an important role later. And again, because it's found on all nucleotides, I went ahead and drew it. I didn't leave the OH group here because that's going to make a difference on whether we're talking about ribose or deoxyribose. But this OH group at number 3 is always present. There's really nothing to note about carbon number 4. It's there, But at carbon number 5, that's where we're going to find that phosphate group. And remember that phosphate group is negatively charged. All right, so at this point, we have identified the components of a nucleotide as the 5-carbon sugar, nitrogenous base, and phosphate group. We also drew out a nucleotide and pointed out important features such as the nitrogenous base at carbon number 1, the presence of the OH or lack of OH at carbon number 2, the presence of the OH at carbon number 3 for all nucleotides, and the phosphate group at carbon number 5. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye.